One of the key components in red wines is tannin, and that adds
texture and longevity. So tannin comes principally from the skins, but also from the seeds and from oak barrels. Bordelais does divide red wine into two categories, vin de garde and vin de consommation. Vin de garde is a wine to guard, to keep for your cellar. That's the serious wine that we think of from Bordeaux. But
and the consommation is to consume and enjoy right now.
That's a supermarket wine. And so the principal thing that they teach at the University of Bordeaux is that you limit the extraction of the tannin to make the vin de consommation, the supermarket wine. Whereas a vin de garde, a wine to keep, a cellaring wine, spends longer time on its skins in the ferment, you extract more tannins. So that's one issue, the quantity of tannins.
And then there's the quality
and then there's exactly the quality of tannins. And one of the things, again, that I learned from my mentor, Jean-Claude Barouet, the Bordelais were always looking for mature, supple tannins. Le tannin mûr, le tannin souple. And
sounds so delicious in French.
Yeah, everything sounds better in French. And so that's an issue of harvest. And if you harvest prematurely, you're going to have some green tannins that will never resolve themselves. And then you can harvest too late and put jam in the bottle. You know, I eat a lot of grapes during harvest. When the tannins are not yet mature and supple, when I chew the Cabernet grapes, they put velvet on my teeth. And I think some of you have probably experienced this, maybe with an old California Petit Syrah. At a certain point, that velvet on the teeth goes away, and there's just a delicious factor. That's the point at which I harvest. And then we have these mature, supple tannins that you can have a lot of, but the wine can be delicious from the beginning. And in general, I would say that if a wine isn't pleasant now, if it's unpleasantly tannic in some way, that it's not going to get better with 10 years in the cellar. Good wine should taste good right away, and then the quantity of those good tannins enable the wine to last in our cellars.
There you go, the quantity and the quality.
That's what's important, those two factors.
What mouthfeels do you associate with tannins?
Chewiness and chunkiness. If the tannins are overly prominent, I might comment to my staff, my team, as we're tasting, and say, oh, there's some chunky tannins there. And that could be that they weren't quite fully mature at the point of harvest, or it could be that wine was pushed a little too much, a little over-extracted, and then those tannins weren't resolved. Maybe that wine didn't spend long enough in the barrel, or maybe it didn't see any egg whites at all. A lot of winemakers have not been trained with classical fining techniques, and so they don't know about them, and so they say, oh, my wine's unfined and unfiltered. But that can leave a rustic quality. That's another good word that I like, a rusticness to the tannins.
Why is tannin important to a wine?
Well, tannin is important because it is along with sulfur dioxide, the principal antioxidant in a wine. But the tannin is the principal thing that allows the wine to age well. Now, that works for red wine, but not white wine. You know, white wine has tannin also. All the color in white wine comes from tannin, and that's why the richer white varieties like Chardonnay and Pinot Gris and Gewürztraminer are more deeply colored, and the lighter white varieties are paler in color. Tannin in white wine as being antioxidative, but there's a difference. In red wine, when the tannin oxidizes, then it binds to a color molecule, and progressively, and then that repeats, and until you get this long chain that gets so big it falls out of solution, and that's the sediment in old red wine. But in white wine, in Chardonnay, where you to do a lot of skin contact, you have a lot of skin tannin, when that tannin oxidizes, it just turns brown, and then your wine is shot, your wine is done. So in fact, many of us seek to minimize the amount of tannin in our white wine by whole cluster pressing and things like that. So tannin plays an important role both in red and in white wines.